So we dedicate our session to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of ISKCON. I would like to pay my obeisances to His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj and His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. So we are on the chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita. It is a part of Gyan Yoga titled as Yoga of the Supreme Person. It is also called as Purushottam Yoga. And it has 20 verses. So it is one of the shortest chapter in Bhagavad Gita along with chapter 12, which also has 20 verses. It is further divided into 5 sections. First is like verse number 1 to 6, in which we will study how we can go from material world to spiritual world. That is detachment and surrender. Then from 7 to 11, we will study about like if we don't surrender, then we have to transmigrate. So there is transmigration of the living entities from one body to another body. And from verse number 12 to 15 is about appreciating Krishna's position as maintainer in this world. How he is maintaining both the spiritual and material worlds. And 16 to 18 is summary of the Vedas and Vedanta, which is also called as Tri Shloki Gita. So these are the 3 verses which are called as Tri Shloki Gita. And 19 to 20 is that if we know Krishna means we know everything, because Krishna is the essence of Vedas. So this way this chapter flows. Now verse number 1 to 6 are from material world to spiritual world. And how it is possible? It is possible only by first we are detaching ourselves from the material world, from sense enjoyment, and then we are surrendering unto Krishna so that we can go to his abode. Or vice versa. If we surrender to Krishna, then automatically we will develop detachment from this material. So this is the 2 means by which we can move towards the spiritual world. Now, what is the connection with the chapter 14? Somebody would like to read it?
Yeah, Mataji, I can read.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Connection with chapter 14. In the previous chapter, Krishna said that he is the basis and supreme shelter of Brahman. Krishna also said that by performing bhakti, one can transcend the material modes and attain the status of Brahman. But to attain devotion and attachment to Krishna, one needs to also develop detachment from this material world. In this chapter, Krishna describes the process of breaking attachment to this material world. He compares this world to a banyan tree and a detachment to an axe to cut it. He then describes Purushottama Yoga. After the discussion of the importance of Bhakti Yoga, one may question, what about the Vedas? It is explained in this chapter that the purpose of Vedic study is to understand Krishna.
Thank you, Krishna. So we know that the chapter ended with verse number 27, in which Krishna told that I am the basis and shelter of. So actually, Bhagwan realization is above Brahman realization, which is partial realization. And in verse number 26, we have learned that only by performing devotional service of bhakti, we will be able to transcend these 3 modes of material nature and then attain to the status of Brahman platform, that is spiritual platform. So from there we can go to Bhagwan realization, because actually Brahman is also dependent on Krishna. Krishna is the basis and shelter of Brahman. So bhakti was given a stress to transcend the modes. Now to do bhakti, to develop that attachment to Krishna, it is possible only when one detaches himself from the material. So now this chapter, Krishna starts with explaining about this material world, how this material world is compared to a banyan tree, and it is so complex, and we have to actually, it's very difficult to get out of it, but we have to cut it with an axe, and that axe is detachment. We have to detach ourselves from material sense, and we have to sharpen that axe by determination. So we have to be very determined to detach ourselves from this material world. Then only we can enter into the spiritual world. And in this chapter, we will also discuss that the main purpose of Veda is not karma kanda, is not to go to heavenly planets. The main purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, the devotees, those who are doing devotional service, they know Krishna. So that means they already know the essence of the Vedas. So that will also be discussed in this chapter. Now, we have compared this material world with a prison house before also. So this material world is the prison. So somebody should be prisoner over there. Then they should be given a dress. Then they are bound by shackles. And then there is a jail. So this prison house is this material. And we know we as living entities are prisoners. And we have been given this body, different types of bodies of different living entities. It can be body of a dog or a monkey or tiger or human being. We have been given this dress according to the desire we had to enjoy. So this is a dress given to us. And then we are bound by these three modes of material nature, which are the three shackles, like iron shackle, mode of ignorance, and silver shackle is mode of passion, and the golden shackle is the mode of goodness. Whichever mode we are in, we are actually bound. We have to rise above the three modes. And the jailer is the Durga, because Durga Devi has been given the responsibility of this material world. Krishna has entrusted Durga Devi to take care of the prisoners here. So it actually, she is doing her job in like deciding which person is eligible to go into the spiritual world and which person will remain in this prison house in the material world. So she actually helped those persons who wants to go to Krishna to get out of this material system. So that is her role. And we have discussed before that what is the purpose of this place. The purpose of this place is not to come and enjoy. The purpose of this place, why Krishna created this material world, is that we have forgotten our eternal relationship with Krishna. So Krishna wanted us to revive that relationship back. And then, like, he wanted us to perform sacrifices here. And we have learned in the third chapter, then karmano anyata loka yama karmavanda. So we have to perform our yajnas or sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Lord. So the main purpose of this material world were to do sacrifices. Whatever we do, we have to offer it to Krishna, and that is sacrifice for the satisfaction of Vishnu, and that will liberate us from this material. So that was the main purpose. But we all have forgotten the purpose, and we are happy with the little happiness we get from this material world, and we are berefting us from the supreme spiritual happiness which we get in the spiritual world. So that is the main purpose of this material world. Now, beginning from the first verse, Krishna compares this material world with an upside banyan tree. Somebody will like to recite this verse?
I'll recite, Mataji.
Yes, Shanti.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Material world is an upside down banyan tree. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhvamulamadash-shakham Ashwadham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavit. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upwards and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. Bhagavad Gita 15.1.
Thank
Jai
you.
Shri Krishna.
So Krishna here is comparing this material existence with an upside down banyan tree. Okay. And he's saying that this is an imperishable. Why imperishable? Because it is called imperishable here because due to its continuity. It is always satatam. It's always there. And we have also learned that material existence or matter in itself is eternal. Only the forms are temporary. Whatever forms or whatever beautiful form we see around, body of a boy or a girl or other forms in this material world, they will manifest and they will, in a due course of time, unmanifest. So that manifestation and and manifestation is temporary. But as such, matter is eternal. So this material world is going on since time immemorial, and nobody can trace the history when this existence started. So that's why it is an imperishable. Now, this tree, as you can see, it's having its roots upward and branches downwards. And the leaves of this tree are compared to Vedic hymns. And it is said that one who knows about this complex tree of material existence actually knows about the Vedas. So the following slides will discuss in detail about this tree. First of all, we will just see what is said in the purport, how are the different parts of the tree compared. So first reason why it is upside down, because actually this is a reflection of the spiritual. This material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So whatever variety there is there in the spiritual world, we can also see it in the material world, but it is in its perverted. It's not real. Then this tree is lying on a surface that is desire. Why the material existence came into picture? Because of the desire of the living entity to enjoy separately from Krishna. So from desire, we get different bodies, we are placed into this material world, and our material existence starts. So that is the basis. Now, we all know that Brahmaji is the first root. Like Brahmaji, from Brahmaji only the material creation starts, the secondary creation starts. So the first root we can consider as root. What is the meaning of root? From which something originates. So Brahmalok is the first root of this material existence. Then there are different branches which are also going up. Some of them are going down. So they are all different planets, different 14 planetary systems. So it is said that the lower part of the branches can be compared to the lower planets, and the higher part of the branches can be compared to the upper planets like Gandharva Loka and Swarga, like. And they have this tree has green leaves, which are like Vedic hymns or the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. Then this tree bears some fruits. So what happens if we are trying to enjoy in this material world? We will get the result of our activities, and that result of the activities will be in the form of dharma, earth, kam, and moksha. So all the living entities are just working because of these four factors. They want to do some religious activities, they want money, they want to fulfill their desires, and ultimately they want to liberate. So these are the fruits of the activities of the living entities. Now it has to be nourished, it has to be given water. And what is that water? It is watered by the three modes of material. And why the material world has been compared to a banyan tree? Because it is the most complex tree. It's so vast and huge. So if a parrot or a bird enters into the banyan tree, it's very difficult for him to get out of it. And that is the same condition of us living entities. We are so deeply rooted and deeply entangled into this material world that we are not able to find a way out of it. So, so the thing is, if we try to understand the complex nature of this material world, we will know that it is very complex, difficult to understand. So why I'm wasting my time in understanding it? The point is that I should get out. And slowly and slowly, that person will develop detachment from this material world, and he will find ways how we can go back to Krishna. So that is the whole purpose of this material existence. So in purport, Prabhupada
one question.
Described this tree. So somebody would like to read about this?
Mataji, before that, one question. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Rajesh.
Yeah. So I think we have this billions of universes, right, Mataji? And then we have only one Brahma, or Brahmas also will be multiple?
Every universe has its own Brahma, and
Okay.
some are 4-headed, some are 8-headed, some are 12-headed, some are 1,000-headed Brahmas also. So
Okay.
every universe has a different.
Yeah, and then here we are saying the root is Brahma, right? So that way it's only single reflection of one universe, or how we can?
Yes, it is in context to that particular universe. Like
Okay.
every universe will have its own Brahma, but Brahma is the responsible for creating that secondary creation of that universe itself. So according to my knowledge, every Brahma, every universe is being given charge by different Brahmas. And we have read in scriptures that they are all these Brahmas will report to Vishnu ultimately, some are 4-headed, some are 1,000-headed, and all these things. So this material world means one particular universe, maybe we can take like that, and its root is that particular Brahma.
Okay. And then you said leaves are Karmakanda portion of the Vedas,
Yes.
right, Mataji? And on the spiritual world, will there be any equivalent one or no?
What
I mean, because this is just a reflection, right? And so on the spiritual world also we have the real tree, and then material world it's a reflection. And in the material world, we are saying these leaves are equivalent to Karmakanda portion of the Vedas. Similarly, on the spiritual world also, will there be any equivalent something like that? Leaves are equivalent to something.
Actually, it is just a metaphor. Okay.
It will in the spiritual world, the Karmakanda will be spiritual services like our transcendental loving service.
Okay.
So there we are involved in duties, in activities. We have heard that inaction is unnatural to the soul, and soul is always active, right?
Yes.
And we saw how in 3rd chapter, that it is unnatural to be inactive. We heard that with the example of some children jumping with a sack.
Suckers.
Right. So if they are with sack, they are not able to really do justice to their running. So with that example, we understood that soul is active, and which is why we say that it is very, very unnatural for the impersonalists to be merged and talk about that losing their individual identity and being inactive, and that is why they are not kind of happy there. So yeah, so in a spiritual world, we will always be involved in transcendental loving services.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Okay, somebody will read this.
Hare Krishna. Now there is no ready experience in this world of a tree situated with its branches down and its roots upward. But there is such a thing, that tree can be found beside a reservoir of water. We can see that the trees on the bank reflect upon the water with their branches down and roots up. In other words, the tree of this material world is only a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. The reflection of the spiritual world is situated on desire, just as a tree's reflection is situated on water. One who wants to get out of this material existence must know this tree thoroughly through analytical study. Then he can cut off his relationship with it. Bhagavad Gita 15.1.
Thank you, Ram. So we normally don't see upside down tree in this material world. But if we go to some bank of some river water or something, lake and all, then we can see a reflection of the tree in the water. And that reflection will be upside. So that's why Krishna is comparing this material world with that reflection, which is upside. And we can see that the basis or the surface of the water is the place from which it is getting reflected. So similarly, what is the basis of this tree coming into existence is our desires. So this is actually a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. Though it means whatever variety is there in the spiritual world, we can experience that into this material world. But it is false, and that is real. And whatever happiness also we get in this material world is actually temporary, and it is not comparable to the supreme spiritual happiness we get in this spiritual world. And if we want to get out of it, we have to know about this tree at least first. If we know, then only we'll try to get out of it. And further, Prabhupada says, this tree being the reflection of the real tree is an exact replica. Everything is there in this spiritual world. The material world is the perverted reflection, so the spiritual world must have the same variegatedness, but in reality. Now we know that reflection is temporary. Sometimes it's seen, sometimes it's not seen. But the origin from where the reflection is reflected is always eternal. So that tree of spiritual world is eternal. The material reflection of the real tree has to be cut off. When it is said that a person knows the Veda, it is assumed that he knows how to cut off the attachment of this material world. So if we are studying Vedas, it's just not to satisfy our needs in the form of dharma, karma, moksha. We have to know what is the main purpose, why Vedas were given by Krishna to us. We know that Krishna gave us these Vedas, and in the Vedas some prescribed duties were there, but these prescribed duties leads to sacrifices, and these sacrifices a living entity performs and then offers them to Krishna to complete the cycle. So a person who is the real knower of the Vedas, not only just studying them for the sake of studying, but actually knowing that the main purpose why Krishna gave these Vedas is to liberate us from this material, to cut our attachment to this material. And such a person is called as the knower of the Vedas. A person who are just attracted by the ritualistic things which are mentioned in the Vedas are actually attracted by the beautiful leaves of it. That's all. They are just concentrating on the leaves of the tree. They don't want to go on the other parts of the tree. He does not know exactly what is the purpose of the Vedas. So the purpose of the Vedas is, as disclosed by the personality of Godhead, is to cut down this affected tree and attain the real tree of the spiritual world. And further describing this tree in the second verse, Krishna says,
in the previous slide,
yes, Shanmukh.
in the previous slide, the reflection is temporary, sometimes seen, sometimes not seen. So that it just means that it's like this material world is temporary and the spiritual world is eternal, right? That's what Prabhupada meant.
Yes, that only I want to say. Like the origin of the reflection will always remain. But this material world, like
And
it has been created by Krishna.
Yeah.
Once all the living entities, they decide to go back to Krishna, there will be no requirement of this material. In that sense, it is temporary, but we all have discussed this again and again, that the material, the matter in itself, or the material nature in itself is eternal, but its manifestation and it's sometimes unmanifest.
unmanifested.
So that is temporary. So that way also we can take this thing.
So its manifestation is temporary, right? Pradhan is always there.
It will be there.
Okay.
And Prabhupada also highlights that it is temporary but not false.
Yes, yes. It's not midya. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the Nirvisheshwari says, Jagat Mithya, like that. It's not.
Okay, ma'am.
So further describing this tree, Krishna says that this branches of the trees seems to be going downwards and upwards, nourished by the three modes of material nature. Twigs are compared to the object of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are the bound to the fruitive actions of the human society. So in the purport regarding this verse, Prabhupada says that its branches are spreading in all directions. So the lower part of the branches can be compared to the lower planets. So like where the living entities like human beings, animal, horses, cows, dogs, etc. are there. And the upper part, some higher forms of living entities like demigods, Gandhavas, or many other high species of them. So these branches are compared to the 14 planetary system. So the lower part of the branches to the lower planets and the higher part of the branches to the higher planets. And what the living entity is doing? Living entity, according to Vedas, he is doing some karma kanda activities. And sometimes like the earthly planet where we are, that is the field of our activities. We are performing the actions there. And depending on a karma, sometimes we are elevated to the higher part of the branches. We go to higher planets. But when the pious results, they finish, we have to again come to the lower planets. So we are jumping from one branch to another. That is the meaning. And this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. Why? Because all our activities are bound by these three modes of material nature. As long as we are in these three modes of material nature, we will keep nourishing this tree. So that is the thing. We are watering it by that. Now, Prabhupada gives an example like a tract of land is barren for want of sufficient water, and some of the land we will find is very green. So similarly, where particular modes of nature are proportionately greater in quantity, the different species of life are manifested accordingly. So, like particular modes of material nature, goodness, then that type of species of life will be there more. Some part of the material manifestation we see more degree of ignorance. People are more in more degrees of ignorance. So it all dependent in the quantity, which mode is more. So that depends. That will define the various species of the life. So this is the three modes of material nature which are responsible for these species coming into picture. Okay. In the third and fourth verse, after describing this tree, Krishna says that the real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. We cannot imagine what is the real form of this tree because we are here. Nobody knows where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation was. So what if we have determination? We can at least, if we don't try, it's out of our capacity to understand it. We should just instead of figuring it out, we should just try to get out of it. So here it is given that if we are drilled, we are determined, then only we can cut down this strongly rooted tree of material existence. Then only we will be able to remove our attachment to this material existence, which is so deep rooted, so conditioning. From lifetime after lifetime, we are so attached that we are not able to liberate us, to go out of the cycle of birth, age, old age, and disease. And that weapon is actually detachment. So if we detach ourselves from this tree, then we can get off of it. Now, after we have detached, we have to look for another place to go. So that is the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is possible only by surrender. So these three things are important. We have to develop attachment and we have to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then we can go back to the eternal kingdom of God. So after describing this tree, we'll see that eternal kingdom of God will be explained by Krishna. But before this, in the purport, Prabhupada says, somebody would like to read this?
I can read it. Oh,
Go ahead, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. When entangled with the material expansions of the tree, one cannot see how far the tree extends, nor can one see the beginning of this tree. Yet one has to find out the cause. I am the son of my father. My father is the son of such and such a person, etc. By searching in this way, one comes to Brahma, who is generated by the Garbhodakayasi Vishnu. Finally, in this way, when one searches the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the end of research work. One has to search out that origin of this tree, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the association of persons who are in knowledge of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then by understanding one, becomes gradually detached from this false reflection of reality, and by knowledge one can cut off the connection and actually become situated in the real tree. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Pandit. So with the purport, Prabhupada explains that it is very difficult to ascertain its beginning and etc. But if somebody wants to find the cause, then he will start seeing, oh, this is my father, and my father is the son of such and such a person. And then he may come to a conclusion, oh, every living entity came down from Brahma, and Brahmaji came from Garbhodakaya Vishnu, and Garbhodakaya Vishnu is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he realizes that actual Supreme Father is Lord Shri Krishna, who is the original origin of this tree. And when he comes to know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and how he comes to know when he associates with like-minded people who are already in knowledge of Krishna. So they will tell him, pure devotees. And by this knowledge, he will be able to gradually detach himself from this material world. And this knowledge is the weapon he will use to cut off. And then actually become situated in the real tree of the spiritual world. So in the next verse, Krishna explains the surrendering process. So if we have knowledge, then we will want to surrender into Krishna. But we require some qualifications, some qualities by which this surrender is possible. So in the fifth verse, Krishna explains the surrendering process. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with the material lust, who are freed from dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender to the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. So again and again, we know in the 13th chapter also some qualities were discussed from 8 to 12 verse. So it is told that if we are influenced by false ego, then it becomes very difficult for us to surrender. When we think, when we are proud of ourselves, we will not take an humble position and surrender to something. So to surrender, we have to become free from a false prestige. And the main problem for us is with this false ego, we think ourselves to be the lord of this material energy. We think ourselves to be the small controllers. We think we are controller of this body, then we want to control our family, then on the large scale, we want to control our society, community, nation, and then international. So this goes on just because we are not free from the false prestige, false ego. And such persons, they can never surrender to Krishna. We have to be free from this illusion that we are the controllers. Then we have to give up the wrong association. Then we, if understand what is eternal, what is real, we are free from lust, free from the dualities of this world, like happiness, distress, honor, dishonor, pain, pleasure, and unbewildered. We are not disturbed. We are not deviated by any circumstances. Such persons, they can surrender to the Supreme Person, and they will be able to attain the eternal kingdom of the Lord. Prabhupada explains about this surrendering process in the purport. Somebody would like to read it?
I'll read Mataji.
I will.
Okay. The surrendering process. The surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride, because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the lord of material nature. It is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. For one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. When one is freed from such a false notion, he becomes free from all the false associations caused by familial, social, and national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. And when one has an understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conceptions such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. He becomes full in knowledge. Then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavad Gita 15.5. Hare Krishna.
This has been so nicely explained by Srila Prabhupada. So that this is the process of surrender. When we come into knowledge, and how we are doing the same thing by reading Bhagavad Gita and all, we are getting knowledge, and this knowledge will help us to overcome our pride, overcome our illusion, and then we can start the surrendering process. It may not be possible to 100% surrender in the beginning, but at least we are trying to surrender in small amounts at present. We are giving our time, our energy for the pleasure of Krishna, and that is also one type of surrender. So slowly and slowly, we can increase the percentage of surrender. And when we come to 100% surrender, then we will be situated at a place of pure devotional service. It may not be possible in the beginning, but we should not lose hope and at least start the process of surrender now itself. And in the next verse, Krishna now explains the qualities of that eternal world. Again, he's comparing that eternal world. He's giving an advertisement of that eternal world to develop a desire in us to go to that eternal. That is the spiritual world. So, what are the qualities of Goloka Vrindavan? Somebody will recite this verse.
I will
Yeah.
recite. Qualities of Golok Vrindavan. न तद्भासयते सूर्यो न शशांको न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम. That supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. Bhagavad Gita 15.6. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Krishna. So Krishna is saying there in the Goloka Vrindavan spiritual world, there is no requirement of sun on. We know that in this material world is so dark. Without sun, there will be so dark. If sun doesn't rise one day, it is not possible to see even our own hand. So, and here nothing is self-illuminous. But in material world, in spiritual world, everything is self-illuminous because it is coming from the energy of Krishna. It is coming to the effulgence, self-effulgence of Krishna, which is making the whole spiritual world so effulgent. There is no darkness out there. Because we cannot understand without fire or electricity how light is possible. That's why their example is given to make it easier for us. We know that if we don't lit fire or there is no light, there will be darkness out there. That is the example to explain us more clearly how is this material world full of darkness and how is that spiritual world full of light and knowledge. So because darkness means ignorance also and knowledge means light. So this material world is full of ignorance, full of darkness. And Krishna is saying that supreme abode of mind, if one goes there, he will never return to this material world again. This is the major quality of a Goloka Vrindavan. But the person who don't go there, what will happen to them? They will transmigrate from one body to another body. So the transmigration has been explained from verse number 7 to 11. So with the 7th verse, Krishna starts explaining actually what are the living entities. So identity of a living entity is given in this verse. Would somebody like to recite this verse?
Yeah, I'll recite. ममैवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूता सनातन मनसस्थानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. Bhagavad Gita 15.7.
Thank you, Ashika. So we all know from our knowledge of 2nd chapter that the soul is a part of super soul. It is an eternal part of super soul, which cannot be breaked, which cannot be dissolved. So many qualities of soul we studied in the 2nd chapter. So here Krishna is saying they are my eternal fragmental parts. It's not like anything material. If material thing is broken, then it's broken. We cannot join it back. But it's not the same case with the eternal fragmental part, the soul of the living entities. They are part of Krishna. They are Anu. Krishna is Vibhu. We have learned this. And being a part of Krishna qualitatively we are same with Krishna. Quantitatively we are less, but we have all those qualities of Krishna of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. And we are naturally eternal because it's not like that after liberation we will lose our individuality, we will lose our identity. It's not like Mayavadi says that we become one with Krishna, we'll merge into Krishna. No, we will still maintain our individual identity. And when we go back to the spiritual world, to the eternal world, there we are given a special spiritual body that is also transcendental like Krishna. And it is said in a scripture that that spiritual body which we get, that body is exactly like that of Krishna. And we like reciprocate with Krishna, we can talk with Krishna there, we can have exchanges with Krishna in that spiritual body, with this with Krishna in that spiritual world, and we maintain our own individuality there also. But what happens now? We are in this condition that we are nitya baddha world. Okay, so because we are conditioned to this material world, we are struggling very hard for our existence. And it doesn't stop with this life also, because our desires and activities which we are doing in this material world will give us a next body in the next world. And we all know the major reason why we are struggling hard is our senses. And sometimes mind is called as the sixth sense. So mind is like, mind takes the input of all the senses, then the mind, it will have some impositions, some impressions from the senses, and they will be stored. Some activities the mind will do immediately. Some he is not able to do, their desires will be stored in the mind. And we all know that when we change our body, the desires stored in the mind, the subtle body, it goes with us. And depending on that impressions we have got throughout our life in this body, whatever inputs we have taken, whatever things we want to enjoy, whatever desires we have developed, similarly, depending on that, we will be awarded a next body. And we will continue in this process of existence. So change of body.
Mataji, one question. I
Yes.
think that merging is there, but identity will still, that particular relation is also there, but identity will still remain. Is that not true?
Merging, how come merging will not be there? Like, we will have a different spiritual body, all the living entities, and they will reciprocate with Krishna. They will not become.
Merging is of desires. It is said when desires are aligned, right? So that is there. Or and what do you understand by merging, Shanmugha?
No, I'm saying, see, in the Bhagavatam, somewhere you only explained last time. So all these positions are there: Salokya, Samipya, Sarupya, Sayujya. All these are there, but devotee doesn't want to be that Sayujya. He doesn't want to be the Sayujya state. He wants to be always serving the Lord.
So,
Yes.
okay, so you are saying that of the three different type of liberation, one is Sayujya.
Sayujya also is there in the Bhagavatam purport you have explained last time.
Sayujya is there, but devotee will not get.
Doesn't, yeah, that is what he doesn't.
Only demons like Shishupal, you know, they end up getting Sayujya.
Who is Prabhu?
Shishupal.
Shishupal, okay.
He got Sayujya Mukti. So, and that is where, you know, Prabhupada kind of highlights that please try to understand that Sayujya Mukti is something, you know, it is, yes, it is undoubtedly, because it is not, they are not Mayavadis, they are Brahmavadis. That's different from Mayavadis.
Correct.
Brahmavadis is a class of a transcendentalist, right? So they get Sayujya.
Yeah, and also even Shishupala, he has to achieve his Swarupa at the end of it, even though he appears to be merged. He attained Sayujya, but still it is not truly Sayujya, right, Prabhu?
Yeah, but these transcendentalists who are following the impersonalist path, they get Sayujya. So the merging which you are saying, it is different from devotees don't merge.
Yes, yes. Devotees never like to achieve that state because they wanted to always serve the Lord wherever they are. And that reciprocation and all will be missing if they,
In the Saivijam.
yeah, in the Saijam.
And it is kind of what we just talked about. It is so inactivities are unnatural to the soul.
Yes.
Because soul is reciprocated. Soul, we remember. What are the two components which are constitutional position of the soul?
Eternal, sir. I mean, Jihare Swarup Krishna Nityadas.
Yeah, and there are two things which are constitutional to the soul: to
one is
service and love.
Yeah, service.
So that both things are not there in the side, which is why they feel kind of incompleteness, and there is always a chance of them to then come back and aspire for higher things. So
okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So the living entity in the material world, he carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aroma. So here it has been explained with the help of example. We all know when the wind blew to a garden, it will carry the fragrance of the flower to a long distance. Similarly, whatever conceptions we have developed in this life, those conceptions will be carried to the next life by a subtle body. And then accordingly, we will take one body and quit this. The living entity thus takes another gross body, and depending on his desires and activities, he will develop a certain type of ear, eyes, like different types of set of sense objects will be given to him. We all know there is a difference of senses in a tiger or in an animal or in a bird. They have different types of senses. So depending on our desires, we get a new set of senses. And all these senses are grouped around mind. We thus enjoy a particular set of sense objects. So basically, in these two shlokas, the process of transmigration has been explained. So we have to believe that yes, whatever activities we do in this material world, whatever conceptions we are developing in this material world, they will impact our new life. So it is said in the purport, Prabhupada says, if we tend to develop good qualities throughout our life, then we may get a demigod birth. Or if we are doing activities like cats and dogs, then we are sure to get a body like a cat and dog in our next life. So that all depends on what we want to enjoy this material world, how our mind is being captivated by different sense objects, and what impressions and we are storing in our mind, and that type of body will get in the next life. So this we have discussed so many times before also. Now, in verse number 10, Krishna says that those who are foolish, who cannot understand why we are living in such a particular body, why we have been giving a particular body like this, why I'm a boy, or why I'm a girl, why I'm a dog. They don't know why they are living in a particular set of body, or what happens when a living entity quits this body. Neither he can understand that his body is under the spell of the modes of material knowledge. So this is not for the foolish person. But when our eyes are trained with knowledge, we have learned this about Gyan Chakshu in our previous chapters. If our eyes are tainted with knowledge, we can see what is soul, what is super soul, what is material nature, what is the relationship between that. So with the eyes of knowledge, we can understand this transmigration process. And when we understand this, then we will be able to get out of this material existence. That is the whole process. So in verse 11 also, Krishna highlights that who can see soul's transmigration and who can't see. So those who are endeavoring transcendentalists, who are situated in self-realization, can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try hard. So if we endeavor for self-realization, then definitely we will be able to see what's going on. But some people, they may endeavor, but they are don't have that right consciousness. They may consider like yoga as something, some physical exercises and all. So they don't know the purpose of yoga. So even if they are trying hard, they may not be able to reach to a position of self-realization. And they will not be able to differentiate between soul, matter, and super soul. Like if a person is blind, however hard he may try to see things, he may not be able to see unless and until he is given the eyes of knowledge. So that is the thing. So they may be on the different paths, they may also be endeavoring hard, but actually endeavor should be followed by transformation. Until and unless our endeavor leads to transformation, we will not be able to realize and see the things clearly. So the thing is, the knowledge has been changed into experience, realized knowledge, and that realized knowledge will help us progress in our self-realization activity, and then we will be able to get out of this material. So this is the message in these 11 verses of 15th chapter. So if any questions, Hare Krishna. So this is the last verse of today's class.
Mataji, I have one question.
Yes, Ashok.
Yeah, so in the first verse, basically when we were talking about the reflection of the inverted banyan tree, we were trying to, understand what are the different parts of the banyan tree. And it was mentioned that the surface is the desire. So from that reflection part, if the, soul needs to come to the spiritual part, so we need to get rid of the desires and break the desires.
No, we
to
have to
come
change
out of
the
that
nature
surface.
of our desires.
Mhm.
We have to change the nature of our desires. We have studied in a previous chapter that real desirelessness is to desire everything for the satisfaction
Krishna.
of Krishna. So we cannot abolish desires. Like we cannot abolish our activities. Soul is by nature active. So there will be desire, but the quality of desires can be changed. If we desire everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, that is itself transcendental. And that will lead us to eternal spiritual.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Mataji, thank you so much. I think that verse Sri Gaur Prabhu has referred so many times, that 15 point.
Mame Vanshu.
Yes, even nice.
15.15 will also come.
Yeah.
There is the second part of the 15.7, which I was just looking at, which there's the first part of it. The living entities, they have my eternal fragment of, but the second part, Manashastyani Indriyani Prakriti. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling hard in the material nature with 6 senses, including the mind. So the previous verse, Krishna is describing about the spiritual world.
Yes.
And here in this word, he's saying that although they are my eternal fragmental parts, they belong there. But why are they here?
Because of the conditioned nature. I mean, once they are in contact with 3 modes of material nature, they are bounded.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Harsha Prabhu's question of desiring is like that 14.26 now. Now we have gone through that. Ham chayo vicharena bhakti yoge sevate sarvam samhite. Right? So if we have to come over these modes, we have to involve in any of the 9 processes of devotional service. Of them, the most important is
Chanting.
Yeah.
Chanting. And hearing.
Yeah.
that desire to enjoy separate from Krishna only who made us landed here in this material world, and now we are sensitive.
Once we come, it's like continuously we are in loop, never goes. The cycle, it's not cyclic, it becomes linear once we come here. I mean, once we take birth, due to one desire, we fall down and struggle hard, like that verse number 7 Prabhuji has explained.
It is also there is 2.67 also. Right? One of the roaming senses can be.
Yes, Indriyana, yeah. 1 weak sense, just because of 1 weak sense, your complete prajna will be destroyed, like a wind comes and, collapse the boat. Yeah.
Prashant, do you have any question?
I was just about to ask for the new Munikalala Center. What's the response today? Because I see nice pictures there. It's mainly from Kirti Garnia.